Today I am doing some work on disabled adaptations for costuming. So I am a very visibly, when I'm in my wheelchair, disabled person with several sensory issues, mental health issues, neurodivergency, and a lot of physical health issues as well to go along with that. So a lot of things that I do have to be adapted for me to be able to take part in them, and a lot of the way that I film things has to be adapted so that I can then put it up on YouTube. I do it because there isn't really anybody else who is visibly disabled who is also doing this, especially not people who have to then adapt things for wheelchairs and who have to adapt things to the extent that I do. And I thought that having somebody in there who was doing that might encourage other people like me to be able to do it as well. I'm going to start with an overview of the things that need to be adapted for me so that you have an idea of where we're going. So I have a connective tissue disorder that affects all of the soft tissue in my body. So I have some sight and hearing problems to go along with the problems with my joints and my internal organs. So that means that I then have to adapt things so that I can see them properly, and when I'm watching or listening to things that give me an overview on how to do things, so tutorials and bits of research and stuff like that, then I have to make sure that there are subtitle options and other things like that so that I can actually understand what's going on. Then I have physical health issues, so coming along with that connective tissue disorder, I've had a lot of dislocations, so I have nerve damage in my hands. I also have tics, so I have to be careful about having things that might be dangerous if my arm jerks and things like that, or at least I have to clear my space so I'm not risking anybody else's health. Then, because of my joint issues and the number of dislocations I have that all over my body with every joint. I have to be careful about the pressure I put on my joints. I have to be careful about how I'm writing and cutting, the pain and fatigue that I get with that, which goes along with my chronic fatigue as well. And I have to make sure that certain parts of my work are adapted so that I don't do myself any extra injuries. Lastly, we have things around my filming and my schedule where I have to make sure that I'm not adding too much to my plate. I have to delay things because of my fatigue or flare-ups, and so I can't stick to a very specific schedule for these kinds of things because I never know how my body is going to react to certain things. So I'm going to start with my sensory issues. My hearing issues are largely fixed by finding things with subtitles or with transcripts, asking my carers or my family members to help me if I can't hear or understand something, and there isn't any subtitles or transcript, and then just using a lot of visual diagrams so that I can then manage that. My sight issues, however, can cause some more issues. So I have a couple of fingers on this hand which don't have any nerve damage in them, and so I can feel on the tips of them. So when I'm sewing, I specifically use touch to help me feel out where I'm going so that I can then do it without having to be able to see where the stitches are, and also be able to feel whether or not the needle has come through so that then I can swap my stance and pull it through. Which is part of why I rarely use a thimble, only for thicker situations, because using a thimble for me would mean losing that extra sense that helps me with my ability to do certain things. Then also I draw up a lot of things. I use Magnification, and I adapt certain things to allow for me to do things without sight, so nice big tactile things. So specifically I have this. It's just one of these things you might see older people using often for sewing and for embroidery. It has a little, one sec, it has a little light on it so that I can use it to see what I'm doing, and it has 2 levels of magnification on it. If you look, here's the lower and here's the thing, and here's the larger magnification. So this is really nice because I can adjust the length on here, and then the way it can sit means I could just sit it here and then do all of my embroidery and sewing stuff that I need to be able to see underneath here, and then squint through the actual magnification to be able to see it. It's not very pretty, it's not my favourite way to do things, but it gives me that sight so that then I can see what I'm doing, especially if it's very, very detailed work. So you can find these pretty much everywhere. Most craft shops carry them. There's tons on Amazon. Some of them have extra stands, some of them have ways for it to move and curvature and all that sort of stuff. I have a pretty basic one with just a light and some magnification because that's all I really need. I usually do my work sitting on the floor or sitting in my wheelchair, and so having something up on a table that I can't necessarily get to so easily isn't as useful as it would be for some people who might have sight issues but not necessarily physical issues. But something that can hang around my neck and just sit here so that I can see underneath it is really great for me. And I have a light, easy to carry light box. This is really useful because I don't have the magnets with me, but it comes with little magnets on it, so it'll hold the paper in place on top of it and anything you're tracing onto. And it comes with different temperatures and brightnesses of lights, so that if you're struggling with, say, very, very bright white lights, you can change it to a yellow one, or if you're struggling to see through whatever you're seeing with a specific colour of light, you can change it around. This again was really, really cheap. They're made pretty much everywhere. I think this was about £20, and it has really helped when it comes to doing tracing off of certain angles for things, or tracing off with embroidery patterns and stuff like that onto cloth, because I just don't have the eyesight to be able to see that well without the extra light behind it. I'll sometimes use this and this in conjunction if I'm struggling to see something specific, and that really helps. And then I have several things which aren't really specific to sewing. It's mostly because I have problems with writing because of the pressure, with big grippy additions to add onto pens and pencils so that I can hold it without hurting my hands so much. And that's really, really helpful to use all of those in conjunction so that I can trace things off that people without my disabilities might be able to just see through on tracing paper or something like that. Also, within my sight issues comes this. Now these are big, chunky, easy to hold clips. I just got a whole bunch of these in bulk from Amazon. I rely on Amazon a lot because I can't easily get out to shops to be able to go and then buy things at certain places, and Amazon delivers quite easily. I live in a very rural area and a lot of places don't deliver here. But these are really, really easy to press down. They don't require much pressure. They're bright colours so I can see them if I drop them. And it just means that when I can't deal with fiddly parts like pins, or the pins are wrinkling things up, but I need things to stay together because I have to take a break, I can see exactly what I've got on there, and then I can also see if I drop them, I can see them easily when I'm doing stuff like that, and it doesn't put too much pressure on my fingers, and I don't accidentally stab myself because I can't see the actual pins. Speaking of pins, I don't actually have them with me, but I have pins with nice big brightly coloured glass heads, again so I can see them more easily if I drop them. And I also have family members and carers who can help me look for things if I drop them. Moving on to my specifically physical issues, I have 2 different sets of sewing scissors, one small, one big. This is really useful for me because some days I can't deal with how heavy and big these are. It requires a little bit of more pressure to do the levering action on these than on these. And B, I don't have the dexterity to do really, really dainty actions with something as big as this. So if I need to use a pair of scissors and I need to be able to do something a little bit smaller, I use either these, or I use a very, very small pair of scissors like these, and I just hold on to them and then cut the smaller parts rather than trying to do stuff that I don't necessarily have the manual dexterity to do with much bigger scissors. It makes life so much easier. I take it in steps, and it means that I am not then dealing with really ragged edges or struggling with other stuff. I keep a pair of these pretty much everywhere where I'm using stuff. They're where I'm doing crafting, sorry. They are sharp enough to cut both thread and fabric, and they don't get used for anything else. And I just keep them nearby. I keep them in any travelling sewing kits I have. It means that I have a pair of scissors that I can do little edits to, if I need to on the fly, and having a small pair of scissors that are easier to manoeuvre with works really, really well when you have some dexterity issues, and the bigger scissors make it 10 times harder to do it with. That's something that I know a lot of people without disabilities do, but it's really essential if you have any dexterity-based issues to be able to use a smaller pair when you need to do something that's more fiddly, a corner, or something that needs to be cut out in a curve. The kind of things where turning it will be much harder with something bigger. Then I also have one of these. These have several different types of cutters available. Basically, you can just plug it in, charge up this. I've got a cordless one so that I don't have to worry about getting wires caught in my wheelchair wheels or on me, especially if I'm wearing braces at the time. They're very, very light. This doesn't take much action at all. And so this button just presses and it will cut along for you, and all you have to do is move it. It is absolutely brilliant if you need specifically to have help with cutting. If your hands are particularly tired, if your arms are particularly tired, or you just don't have the ability to do that kind of dexterous work right then this can really help, especially with doing the big cuts where you have to do a lot of cutting all at once. This means that I can get it all out and done, and then I can take a break and I can do the rest tomorrow, or I can do the rest when I'm feeling better. But this just takes out a lot of the energy requirements for me to be doing this. So a specific one that I've got is this one. They are available, at least in the UK, on Amazon. They work pretty well. I haven't seen them in craft shops, but I'm sure in certain places they're probably available. They are used largely by most people for when they've got to cut a lot of fabric all at once, so a thick amount, or leather or other tough things. But for people with disabilities, it's really great for just regular fabric cutting, because it means that we're not putting all of that extra pressure on our hands and on our arms, and doing things that we might not necessarily be able to do that day, or we might not be able to do full stop. I have several different types of measuring tape. This one has big numbers on it, so when I'm struggling to see things, it's really useful. And it's really, really easy to carry for me and easy to hold. This one has different types of measurements on it. It's a bit smaller, but it's a little bit more accurate, and if I've got somebody around to give me a hand, then that's really helpful. I also have quilting rulers and other stuff like that, which works really well with my magnification. So this stuff, really, it's just depending on how well I'm doing holding things. If I'm struggling to hold things and not drop them, something nice and big like this to hang on to when I'm measuring stuff is really, really helpful. If I'm doing a bit better and I'm managing to do this and I have somebody around to then help me read the numbers if I can't see them properly, then something like this is really helpful because it's slightly more accurate. It allows for more manoeuvring because it's more flexible and bendy, and it gives me those options. So if you need big stuff so that you can grip onto it better, something like this, it has a button so it'll just pull it back in for you, so you don't have to have all the dexterity. You just need to be able to do a very, very small amount of pulling with something like this. And it has one of these little ends on it here, so you can hook something into the end here to make it bigger if you need something to hold on to it with. This is a Chinese brand. If you want, I know that there's tons of other brand types. It clips onto certain things. It just makes it really easy for me to carry it around. I keep it in my sewing box most of the time, but if I'm going travelling, then I might take this one, or if I've only got a very small amount of space and I've got some help, I'll take this one. But it's really, really useful to have a measuring tape that you can read and a measuring tape that you can hold. If they're not both the same one, then having somebody around to help you is really helpful. And you can always choose. Measuring tapes are very, very cheap. You can usually get them for maybe a couple of pounds at most. They usually don't cost very much at all. They're often in bundles with other things. And so it's really useful to have a few of those around, so that when you're then thinking about, oh, I need to grab a measuring tape, my memory's not amazing, and I don't know where I put it down, then you have one nearby for you, so you can always do that. Speaking of my memory issues, I have a box that I keep the essential sewing stuff in, and then I have a bag downstairs that I keep what I'm currently working on in, so that I know where everything is, I have a place to put everything, and my memory issues then don't make things harder. So just having a specific spot that you put stuff back in every time makes it a little bit easier. I know it's easier said than done, but once you've gotten yourself into the habit, it really does help with the memory issues to just have a spot. And even if that spot moves around because it's in a box or a bag, if you have something big and obvious that you can see, that you know is the place where everything goes, then it makes life so much easier. I have boxes for certain things, I'll have a bag for a certain group of things, and I know where all of my crafting stuff is because this bag is for my lace making, and this bag is for my current project, and this one's for my embroidery. And that way I, at a glance, know where I've put my specific thing that I need. If it's any of my embroidery patterns or the thread or anything like that, it's in the bag with the embroidery stuff. If it's something that I'm working on right now and the materials needed specifically for that, it's in the bag with my current project. On the neurodivergency issue, it's not a specific product or an item, but a specific method. I know that this sounds bad to people who don't have to deal with this the way that we do, because we'll be constantly told to not start a new project until we finish the previous one. But I've actually found that having two projects going on simultaneously works really, really well for me, because I have executive dysfunction issues, and sometimes I'll be really struggling to do one specific thing, especially if I've got to do it for a long period of time. If I then have something else that I'm supposed to be doing, so another project that I'm intending to put on my YouTube, or another project that I'm intending to get finished maybe not necessarily one with a hard and fast deadline, but another project that is still something I'm supposed to be doing, that means that then I can have both projects in my bag, and when I'm finding it really difficult, or I'm struggling, or I'm getting frustrated with the first project, I can just move over to the second one and procrastinate on the first project by still being productive with the second one. It's really helpful for me, especially as my energy is a premium for me, and so getting stuff done, if I'm struggling with my executive function, when I've got actual energy to use, is something that I really want to do. So if I can't do something on one specific project because I'm really struggling, being able to at least be productive on something else is really good for my mental health. And then lastly, just have things that make you happy. I mean, I have this hanging around in my bedroom. It's really pretty. I like it. It makes my mental health a bit better if I just look at it and it feels happy. It's not expensive, it's just cheap, like cheap metal and plastic, but it's pretty. I like it. And having something pretty, and even if it's not super expensive, having something pretty and that makes you happy within your environment can be really helpful if you're struggling with your mental health, or if you're stuck in bed a lot and you just want pretty things nearby you. This specifically is something that I bought purely because it's pretty. I like it, and it sits on my bedside table because I spend so much time in bed, and I can just look over at it if I need a bit of a prettiness break. So that's my general idea. Adapt things to what works for you. There's no specific perfect way to do it. No matter what some people might say, or how some people judge people for the way that they do and manage things, it's down to your individual health and abilities. Don't feel like you have to do everything the way that they're doing it. Okay, thank you very much. I will see you again when I'm feeling up to it next time. Bye!